And we're live.
Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. The first episode of the community stream here on the INVICTUS Stream. My name is Bob Lyle, and these are my four first episode friends. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Let's start with Greg.
Hey, I'm Greg. I haven't been around the community lately, but I've been around for a few years. Happy to be here.
All right, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark. Like Greg, I've been around for a long time. Been lurking a lot lately, but yeah, long time member.
All right, Mike. All right, we got a little bit of lag from you, and then no audio for some reason. So we'll catch back up with you in a minute to see if it's still working. I'm Chris Lawrence. We all are part of the community. We also started some of the original community streams with the RPGs. I'm Chris Lawrence, and anyway, kind of been here for several years, kind of lurking for the last little bit with kind of family stuff, and that sometimes is okay. But anyway, so that's kind of a little bit of background for me. I started, I think, probably back when maybe basically with the first Call of Cthulhu, I think is kind of when I started. So anyway, that's a little bit of an intro for me, and then I'll hand it back over to Mike if you want to see if your audio is still working. All right, Mike, it sounds like that your audio is still not working. So if you want to go ahead and try to check your, see if you're muted or anything like that. So anyway, we'll hand it back over to Bob, and then we'll get back to Mike in a minute.
First, I just want to thank Harlan and Joe, Chris, and Opie and Rob for letting us do this. We haven't had anything for quite a while in the community stream. I did run I believe it was a 5-part Vampire the Masquerade or Vampire the Requiem game that Chris and Mark were both a part of. Had a bunch of fun there. And we were talking before, I think it was the first RPG that we did that was put on the community stream, if I remember right. Again, I want to thank the guys in Canada for letting us do this, represent. And what we want to do here is get the community involved. I'd like to see different people. We will be running games. We'll be running one-shots, maybe a couple of 3 episode campaigns. We'll talk about those a little bit later. But Harlan put out a video, I believe it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, maybe at the most, saying that there was going to be some changes. That's when he announced that we were going to be doing this. And I'd like to get everybody's feedback on what he was saying. I personally think it's a good idea, especially he said, Joe works an hour and a half away and has to travel, and they can't pull these 3-hour games anymore on a weeknight because she travels back and forth to work, and a couple other guys have kids now. So most of the time, oh, sorry, I totally forgot to thank Justin. My bad.
There we go, Justin.
So that's on me. I do like the way that the forum's going to be now, especially with their new campaign with Harlan and Joe, the Shadow of the Warlock. And shout out to Joe on her cosplay skills. Like I said, I'm gonna have to step up mine. I've dressed up in a couple. I don't think they've ever been put out for the community or anything. It was with Mr. Romo is our GM. But just get y'all's. Do you have any input on what Harlan and the other guys are wanting to do this year?
As far as like the shortening to what was it, 2 hours?
2
Instead of
hours.
3. That, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Especially, I think he said something about how the third hours a lot of times kind of slow down and kind of drag a little bit. If it's to help everybody kind of with lives going on and things happening, it's definitely the right way to go. And I don't see any reason that anyone would be upset with that. I would hope not. But
Yeah, life happens, especially with work.
Oh, awesome. So we got Mike. So Mike, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, I'm Mike. I've been a member of the community for a few years. Yeah, I don't know what was on with the audio. I think my earphones were actually messed up or something.
That's okay.
Just unplugged.
Sure, that's okay.
That's why I tossed mine too.
Mark, what do you think about the time change to shortening to 2 hours?
I agree with it. I mean, it, as has already been said, it tends to slow down the last third. And hey, life happens. I mean, everyone's starting to have things going on that they didn't have to deal with, 4+ years ago. And I mean, you just adjust and do what you have to do. Family comes first, life comes first. This is all just fun for us.
And it's more of a quality over quantity type of thing too, I believe. That way, they're not being, burning the candle at both ends, trying to get a campaign set up. And I don't know if they're going to shorten like sessions down. I know they had 10-part sessions is what they used to do back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to shorten those to 3 to 5. And of course, he's going to have, he's got Die Shame. Everybody go subscribe to Die Shame, the podcast. And they've got, spooky games and just other stuff going that if they feel like they need to put it up on not just a game night, but, on a Saturday for the spooky games and stuff like that, plus the Die Shame.
That's a lot on their plate.
How about the dice shame? How many? Who would like to kind of talk about those episodes and kind of what the content of that is?
That's just them sitting around playing game or RPGs and stuff. And I think that they're a little bit more freer on a podcast than they are on video.
So how do you think, or what do you think that is?
It's because they're doing it for us, but they're doing it for the podcast is more doing it for them. It's them playing games, and they're not having to, basically cater to everybody. I don't know if that sounds harsh or anything. But
no, it's more like an entertaining. They're providing like they're performing and stuff on Wednesday nights, right?
Yeah. It's like a movie. It's like a movie on Wednesday night, but it's just them sitting around, being themselves on the Die Shame stream.
Right.
Yeah, I see it more them inviting us into their home for them being them on Die Shame.
Yeah.
yeah, so more like a friends around the table kind of vibe, which is nice to have. Especially for those of us that are having a hard time keeping groups together. Just kind of like being able to have that there is kind of nice. It fills that void for a while.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're free too to talk about more stuff, so it's not just the kind of games and stuff that they do, but they have that medium that kind of opens that up to kind of split up the focus. So like Wednesday nights, since they're, of course, they've been doing 3 hours, let's see, The very first Dragon Age character creation was 4 years ago, and that was 3 hours and 9 minutes. So they've been doing that for a long time, and of course that was, yeah, life was different 4 years ago for a lot of us and for them too. So healthy wise, like for them, again, they're not really they're not doing this to, like, they're doing this for us. They're doing this for the community. They're not really making a lot on it, or if they are, I know that they're putting it back into the actual product. So this is just a bunch of friends that were doing stuff before. So I do like to see, I know that I was kind of concerned, at least through some of the streams, when everything just about around, I think, 2 years in, stuff like that. You're doing that 3 hours every Wednesday, so that's a huge commitment on them, and I really appreciate it, and I know that helps the community as well. But again, they were having fun, and they're also having fun providing a community to other people. So that was real nice. And I think we got...
Oh, here he comes.
Broke up. Here we go. Hey, guys.
The storm hit?
No, it was a preemptive attack, I think.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
Here we go.
There he is. But even Terry Erickson on the chat here on YouTube, he said it would make it easier to avoid or edit out lulls, and makes for tighter storytelling, in his opinion. And I can see that. Like I said, like we said, they don't have to prepare to entertain us. They're entertaining themselves. So,
Yeah.
Let's see. So is that all the... Let's see, the changes I think that we went over? I think it was mainly, the big thing was the time constraint, or it was down to 2 hours to kind of streamline things, and also to get more of the fun stuff onto the dice shame. Was that about it? I think.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Unless anybody else has anything to add.
Also, too, so for those that are watching right now, we are just streaming to the YouTube channel. If you're there, so if you want to post anything in chat, there's the live chat is on for that. So if you guys want to post anything in there, I know that Terry and Aisha and Mike, Jaka, I think, are there. So if you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to put in, we've got some preset questions that we're going through. So anyway, feel free to help us out, or add anything that you think is pretty interesting for you. So we'd like to hear your thoughts as well.
And speaking of questions, did we lose there, Greg?
Yeah, Greg.
There he is. There was a couple of questions posed to the stream in general this past week. One was from Mike Fazio, friend of the stream. And he's talking about where he works at his school. He's got 55 students enrolled in his role-playing class, I guess we could say, club. And they're getting too big, so he's had to split them up in groups. He says A, B, and C. And they meet weekly and rotate on a weekly basis. So he takes Group A one week, Group B the next week, Group C. But there's getting to be too many of them, and he wants to know how to accommodate them. His full question, it's a long question, is over on the INVICTUS Stream Facebook page. It was from yesterday. I answered, and I said, when I started role playing back in 78, 79, we would draw our characters up, we would play, and every once in a while we would have what we call a contest of champions, where it would be us fighting each other. Usually it was for some big magic item or something like that. So the winner would get that. It was like, and Greg would know what I mean. It's like last man standing in wrestling.
Right.
So what is that? The Royal Rumble is basically what it was. Last person standing gets the magic item.
Okay.
But I suggested that have them fight all three of these groups. Take the top three people in each group and make your group D. Run a group D a little bit later, do it again. Of course, the winners from the previous contest of champions wouldn't be eligible. So his group D would be changing constantly. And I don't know if anybody here, I think Chris may have commented on that, but what are y'all's opinions on that?
Well, I have to admit, I'm envious of someone that has too many players. Because it's hard for us to, I mean, we finally got a group that seemed to be eager to play, and I'm grateful for that. But for most of the time, desert, I like the battle royale kind of thing because it gives everyone a chance to not only jockey for position, but also you'll see characters doing things that they wouldn't normally do, especially if you say, okay, well, it's not, character death isn't permanent. It's just, this is a one-time thing. So people are going to do stuff they wouldn't normally do at the table. They'll take chances and they'll run spells and stuff that they might not do at the table, which is interesting to see. So I thought that was a great idea.
And basically, let the players think outside the box. They know who they play with. They know their strengths. They know their weaknesses. So they're going to have to do, something really off the wall to defeat their friends.
That's a really interesting idea. When you've seen that, would you rather people come in playing their character as usual as far as like characters go, like their personality and what they wouldn't do, like depending on how their alignment goes, or would you throw that out the window?
No, you would play as you usually did. I don't know how you would get around lawful good character, trying to beat another lawful good. Have like some deity come down or something like that saying, we're plucking you all from your area. I'm going to put you in this area. Death isn't permanent, so you're not going to, or heck, even make them have penalties for playing outside their alignment. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a tool for the players, and it would be a tool for like Mike running this. I don't know if he's ever had people playing outside their alignment, but I guess that would be DM's choice.
One thing that I had mentioned to possibly to Mike too is so he's got about around 55 students. So with something that big, I know that I'm teaching kind of a boys class, and the age range is from like 8 to 11. So and I've got about 14 boys in that class, and it's just me. And so I tried to think about kind of how to get them all to sit down and pay attention in the first place. And again, these are younger kids than what Mike is teaching with, and they're also in a more formal setting than where I'm at. But basically, I had proposed, or I had thought that, every kid with that many kids, say if I'm just going to be the GM for my situation for 14 boys, like that alone is really hard, because I don't necessarily have any kids in that group that are going to be able to run some stuff on right now. But I went ahead and tested it, and the way I did that was I kind of thought about how the kids would want to participate. And I had taken a class session one time, and I basically posed some questions. I'm like, rate on a scale of 1 to 5. What are some things that you like to do? And then I put stuff like creating a story, or drawing a story, or let's see, like acting out, doing something like that, so that I could try to get everyone involved in how they feel comfortable to get involved. And so the thing that I mentioned to Mike was that that maybe he could break a task up for that big of a group at least one time, maybe, or I'm not really sure how you do it, but basically you have some artists involved so that they can kind of maybe do some pre-session stuff, like where they can make a map or get together a bunch of, like, say 5 kids and then draw up some characters, or do some PCs or NPCs or monsters, do stuff like that. Have some people actually like create some small stories that maybe they could run a little small one shot and kind of give them a little section there. And then also too, let's see, and then I even threw in something like a bard type character, that's somebody that's just kind of sitting down and they're just kind of logging. So I know that one thing that the Invictus guys started doing was that they would kind of log things down, and Harlan would have to do this too. He'd have to make notes, and even the PCs too. I know Justin at least did, and they were making notes so that they can remember on 10-part series kind of what happened, because a lot of things were kind of building off of that, and they could kind of use that story-wise. So I kind of had mentioned something like a bard character, but I was just kind of throwing out some stuff, and of course other kids can do the basic GM stuff maybe when they're ready, and then some of the PCs, some people that could actually play the PCs, the people that kind of like to talk. You're going to get you're going to get some of those people that like to talk, and then you're going to get some people that just want to be that feel more comfortable kind of being introverted and just kind of being a part of the story and being a part of that story in a different way, but allow them to be creative. So I don't know. That was just kind of my mindset for Mike's group, and then from some of the experiences that I had before. So, but there's also a lot of really good comments and stuff and ideas for Mike. So,
yeah. What do you think, Mike?
They could possibly have a lot draw aims for like the group D, who wants to be in the group D, or base it off of grades. Who has the best grades is a cool thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Might have them really fighting in school.
Oh, that would be bad.
Fighting in a constructive way with grades. I'm going to fight you with my A.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. With the group, like Mark was saying, that's a good problem to have with that many players, 55. But he might want to also go the Jedi Council way too and start training some of the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
now he did mention, I think he said that he's got some older students that he has that could come in and maybe run some games sometimes, I think is what he said. So I can't remember. I can't find that. Oh, see, absolute. So Mike says, absolutely. I have students that are in high school now who have offered to come and run games. I will reach out to them and see if they can help. So, that's pretty awesome. So Mike's been doing that for a while. So he's got some investment already coming back to kind of help and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was about to comment because the Battle Royale had me start thinking. And I was going through the comments, and I can see that Christopher Tranter had already beat me to the same idea of divide the groups up and have them all go after the same goal. So you have several adventuring parties all targeting the same thing. So
that's super cool.
Lots of different storylines tied into one overarching one, which, I mean, I like that thought, because you've got, instead of everybody taking part in the same thing, everybody's story is different, but they all contribute to the same thing.
Yeah, they could all be on. Go ahead.
I said it's like The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. It's the same story, but two different, like Mark was saying, two different areas or whatever, but they're going for the same goal. Heck, I don't know, if he wants to be insane, I guess he could make like an end game type of deal and have all 55 of them playing at the same time.
I
And
would love.
if he does that, I want him to stream it because I want to see that.
I was about to say I would love to see that happen. That'd be fantastic to watch.
Yeah, because I admit I've had 8 people sitting at my table at one time during, oh gosh, what was it? Tomb of Annihilation. That was too many for me. I can't imagine any more than that.
One thing that I thought of is that was a really good. So you kind of have like these side quests, parallel side quests, right? So everybody is kind of attacking maybe a big story from different angles, and then you've got some of the other people that are maybe some of the bards too. That they maybe you can task them to try to weave like a big story together and stuff like that. So you can kind of maybe allow some of the characters to, or some of the students to maybe look at it that way. Maybe to kind of take some micromanagement off of Mike a little bit, but also really encourage them to be I don't know, creative in different ways. I don't know. So I mean I definitely see that like that way would be super fun to do. So.
And he knows bards. He's the best bard that I know. So
The bass bard. Let's see. So if one of you guys, I don't know if you who has the stream up, and can look at some of the questions, or who's looking at those questions.
I've got it up here.
It made me lag, so I shut it off.
Okay. How about Mike or Greg? Do y'all have any of that up?
I'm looking at the YouTube stream.
Yeah, I can't seem to get it up.
The YouTube chat.
Yeah, trying to read as fast as I can.
Okay. If I don't want to miss any of some of the questions or some of the stuff, so I'm trying my best to keep up. So if one of you guys want to maybe take that as well, as I'm trying to kind of keep some of this up, that would be helpful.
I just see most of it there is on the YouTube.
Okay. Well, let's see. So let's go back. I'll go back to the live chat. So right now we have, let's see. Terry Erickson said that he's got a really big, he's got an idea for the big group game that he'll post a little bit later. Let's see.
I got it up finally. Okay, it took long. Sorry.
Let's see. Okay, so it looks like one of the INVICTUS Stream guys or gal has got posted a suggestion. They do a mega games like the conventions for D&D Adventures League. It looks like that they've kind of, at least somebody's seen some kind of a mega game before. See, where multiple GMs are running a game, but all for the same enemy, all in one room, and they have runners explaining damage to the GMs. It's crazy. Joe's run a few of them. She'd be good to weigh in. So it's probably Harlan on that. So
that sounds insane.
Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy.
Yeah. We have some Dragon Con called the Cheese Grater, where people just bring in character and they play until they get killed, and then they make another character, and they start and they just go until they try to kill everybody. The GM's job is, okay, I'm not pulling any punches.
See, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've never done like an Adventures League type thing. What is that? Has anyone done it before? What's that like?
We started with 4E, so I don't go back to, first edition, second edition, like that. But I do remember the Adventurers League being more restrictive. They wanted to have tight control over, they have very specific rules. You have to follow within certain guidelines. And I understand it, but I am more of a household player where we can fudge some rules. We can flex a good bit more, and in Adventures League you can't. You have to stay within a very specific set of guidelines. So I mean, again, reason for it, I'm just not as big a fan.
Okay. All right.
Well, all right. Let's talk about, since we're all familiar with playing online and sitting at a table, What do you prefer? Do you prefer playing online with other people that you may not even know, or the more intimate setting is sitting at your table?
I think it depends
I've
on
only
who
ever,
you're playing with. Oh, sorry.
I've only ever played online, so I wouldn't know about playing like one-on-one intimate sex, anything like that.
What are some issues, Mike, that you've come up with? What are some pros and what are some cons that you've found with playing online? I mean, even though you only know that, just I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
Cons, definitely technical issues. People, their connections dropping and stuff. That's usually really the only problem I found.
All right, cool. Hey, Greg. Yeah.
I think it depends on just partly the people you're playing with, regardless of if it's going to be online or in person. I feel like um, the times that I've done it online, I've seen a lot of people that want to try to fudge rolls more,
Mm.
um, which like it. I don't know. It feels like if you're online and you're not kind of next to people, they tend to try to break those rules if they can. And at the same time, I'm someone that kind of likes to have things in front of me, like actual hardcover books. So I'll always prefer
Hmm.
in person. But there's definitely a reason to do it online, and you'll have a lot more tools, kind of like better ways to show people things, better pictures. So there's always a reason for it. But I've had a few bad experiences online, which kind of leads me to go away from it whenever I can.
And it's right now I'm involved every other weekend with a group of guys in town to the north of me for Starfinder, which is it's a great game, rules heavy if you like that kind of thing. Uh, that's that's a good group. I like that group. They know what they're doing and they know the rules, which is a big deal. Here locally, I've we've had some I wouldn't say problems, but it just doesn't make for a very fun time when you're playing for 3 or 4 hours and things are just. I'm not saying going our way, but all the contradictions and stuff. I would rather play online. Uh, I know, of course, like I said, Chris and Mark have both played when I've DM'd. Me and Mark are in a game now. The what is it? The I can't remember. It's a D&D game.
Yeah, it's a 5e game.
Yeah, and the Sprawl. Uh, we're involved with that and Dungeon World, which I hope we pick back up. I really like those three. They're real fun. But I would rather sit here and basically play with you guys from the stream, even if I've never even met you. Like Greg, this met Greg this first time I met Mike, and but like I said, we're going to get into what we're going to be hopefully playing here later. Like Mike said, there's technical issues. Um, as we've seen a little bit today, I had to take my headphones off because they were screwing everything up, and I had to restart before we began today. But I would rather play online. And Greg was saying about the people wanting to fudge the rolls and stuff. We play on Roll20, so you really can't fudge anything there. I mean, everybody sees what you roll. I would like to fudge my rolls sometimes because I roll horrible, but and it's a really good site to play on too. That's what we're playing that Dungeons and Dragons game on. It's got the map, uh, you know, player markers and stuff like that. It just gets more immersive, and you don't have everything all spread out. Everything is on your screen. I know Mark, he's got probably every manual known to man, and some not tucked away somewhere in his house. I like hard copies too, but
Yeah, I like
sometimes paying $50 for a core rule book's not in the cards, and I need to get it for $12 off, for a PDF or something like that.
Drive-through RPG is your
Yep.
rant.
That it is. And Chaosium too. When I bought my Cthulhu, I believe it was 7th edition. I got a free PDF for that. So I did buy the hard copy, and I got that for free. So that was good too.
I think as far as there's definitely pros and cons, even for like the GM, and for like being online, doing everything online, and then also too being in person too. But as far as like playing wise, online, so it's hard to kind of, because you do kind of talk over a little bit, and it's a little bit, I don't know, like it's less personal because I can kind of see your faces a little bit, but I'm also looking at the camera right now too, so I can't necessarily get the vibe of what everybody's doing. And when we're laughing and we're trying to like cut up some, like we're talking over in real life when we're in person, and that's fine. But when you're playing like this, you do have to learn a little bit more different ways to play, and to so share dialogue too. So if I'm trying to do something funny with somebody else, like sometimes it's hard to do. It's easier to do that in person for me than it is to do online a little bit. So like definitely the personal aspect of it, I love being around people a lot more because we can laugh, we can do stuff like that, and I don't know, you just miss that emotional tie. It's sort of separate, but it's also good. Like Harlan suggested, and he said that you probably have slimmer pickings to play locally. So that's one great advantage for being online, is that you have access to more people, and two friends. I've got a friend that moved to Ireland, so we're going to be looking at trying to do some stuff like that. So that's definitely great for getting that. And I think we had Dungeon World, I think that that we did, and I think that was I think we had like at least 2 or 3 different nationalities, locations, I think, or at least 4. So that was pretty cool.
We got another question up here.
Sure.
I believe it's from Harlan.
Looks like it.
He said he's got a question for each one of us: DM or GM, or player. What do we prefer? And how do we handle problem players? And desert island RPG system.
Yes,
So
oh, go ahead.
what I'd rather do is I get on kicks. I want to be DM for a while, but then when you're a DM for 1 or 2 years and not being able to play, it's like I want to make a character. I want to play now, and that's why I'm playing Starfinder and town north of me. It's because I'm an actual player, and I really like that. How do we handle a problem player? We haven't really ever had a problem player in my Starfinder group. They're all a bunch of great guys. Here locally, there's problem players, but it's usually the DM that's the problem. So we might play one game and then we may not play again. So I guess if I was put in that situation, it would depend on what they were doing. If they're coming in saying, well, we walk into a room and there's a sheriff standing there. Well, I want to go up and punch the sheriff. Why do you want to punch the sheriff? Just because? Why? What's the reason? Or I want to burn that house down, or I want to do this or that. And it's kind of hard sometimes to get them back on the rails when they go off like that. But I've never had to pull somebody aside and say, hey, you're being a goofball or something like that. So knock it off. And I don't know about the Desert Island RPG system. I've never heard of it. I guess it's
He clarified that. It said as
Okay.
if you could only have one system, Desert Island 1.
Oh, okay. One system. Uh, ugh.
So I think that also like there's so many there's so many good things that systems bring. Um, and it's also too. I think it depends on your play style too. So for Bob, it may be more crunchy stuff. So to be able to get into a lot more fight and stuff and drag that fight out a lot more. And then say for Mark, it may be more like and more kind of what the Invictus stream leans to, which you don't see very much coming into it. You may not know that you can very loosely use the system and just almost use any system, but be able to kind of role play and like act and do that theatrical type style. So I think that would be like the two big things to have to decide from. Maybe, I don't know, because you could almost kind of take any system like and it be crunchy. So if you could if you had to use it, if you had to take it only one, then you could choose maybe a crunchier type that you could get pretty deep with that, and then you can very loosely use it. And if people or yourself want to play, say, more of a theatrical style or some of that, and then also too, like you also have some of the Call of Cthulhu. And then D&D, they have a huge world already pre-built for you, right? But you have something like Dungeon World where you make that world. Like it's got a world building system in it. So I don't know. Those are the few things that kind of jump into my mind of questions that I would ask myself for it being the lone RPG system for forever.
And it's like when we played the vampire game too. There was before we started, I took out some rules that were going to slow it down.
Mm.
So I was trying to go for more of a storytelling with RPG elements. You know, you're not fighting every 10 feet and stuff like that. You know, I like the story, and I like, and that's what they do on the stream. I like the stories. Because you could have depending on the dice rolls, you could have a battle that could last all. To be honest, it's happened to us. We fight two monsters or whatever, and it takes an hour and a half. It's crazy. But my desert island would probably be Rips. But Mike and Greg, what do y'all think?
I usually end up being the GM in most scenarios. I've only played actually as a player maybe 3 times, just because it's hard to find somebody else to be a GM. As far as problem players go, I have one game that I ran where these 2 players just love to harass each other to the point where they would break down equipment. Like it was there was this one point where one of them got a very nice piece of armor that really helped save them a lot of fights, because we were doing, I think it was Numenera, which normally you don't do a lot of fights in Numenera, but that's the kind of group they were. So I had to alter it around, and he was just getting mauled every fight, and he finally got something to help him out with that. And the next game, it was sabotaged, and it's just they just always did, to the point where it kind of ruined sessions. And at a certain point, I had to pull them both aside and talk to them and explain that they might enjoy it, but the other 2 that were at the table weren't having fun. Outside of that, the best thing I can do is sometimes I kind of increase difficulties on rolls, but some people might see that as some people just might not enjoy it. I think it depends on what. As far as Desert Island, I would either go Numenera Cipher system or Stars That Number. I actually started joining the Invictus group once they started doing Numenera. I think it was 4 years ago. I was in some group on Facebook, and someone posted a video of one of the first videos they did for Numenera, and it's one that gives you just enough of the world that you kind of have an idea of what's going on at every location, but not enough that you're kind of stuck on rail tracks. It's a system that lends itself to creativity and option and kind of improv. So I think if I had to be stuck with just one for the rest of my life, I'd go with that.
So Numenera.
Numenera.
What about you, Mike?
Oh, I've been a player more than a GM. I do like being a GM. The storytelling aspect and all that. Player more, although I don't know. Without being too wishy-washy, I do like being a GM though. Problem player had any? How I would do it if I did find a way to make consequences match, produce a cursed. I don't know. Desert island situation. Wow, that's a toss-up between Savage Worlds, like Deadlands Reloaded, and Call of Cthulhu. I like them both. I'd probably go with Call of Cthulhu though.
And I'm going to change mine to Dungeon World. Because you only need one book, and like Chris said, it's you make the world, so I could put anything I wanted in it. So,
How about you, Mark?
Let's see. As far as systems, Bob said it. I have so many resource books. It's hard to choose. I think we were introduced to D&D, so I lean toward that. I haven't played Dungeon World, and I've heard and read a lot about it, and I just haven't gotten into it, and you've gotten me thinking about it again. But just knee-jerk right now, I'd have to say either 4 or 5e. 5e just because it's more recent and has more resources. But yeah, I'd have to look and see, which flavor of the month I want because I have so many to choose from. I was looking at the comments on the stream. I saw where Victoria had mentioned we were talking about problem players, and one of our characters has learned after playing. We have a household group that we're all friends, close friends, and it's hard to correct one another when you're kind of starting to veer off. And he finally learned it's like, well, we don't have to be good all the time. I can actually channel my character. Like, well, that's great. I'm glad that you're learning to actually get it in character. And his solution to everything is to set it on fire. So we're having to find a way to help him understand that that's not always the solution. We haven't resolved it yet. We're working on it, other than saying, okay, everything around you is stone, nothing burns. Or as another comment said, decisions have consequences. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you've set the house you're in on fire, and now you're going to either die or have to get out. You just have to make them understand that you can't just do something and not pay for it in some way. DM or player, I love being the DM because I like to know what's going on and know what's behind the curtain. But I'm very grateful that Victoria will DM on occasion and let me get out from behind the screen and actually write up a character and roll dice and take damage. But yeah, I'll play on both sides. I don't have a preference. It's just fun to know what's going to happen down the road. Whereas as a player, you just have to find out as you play.
All righty, those are great questions.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Go for it.
Yeah. Let's see. So I kind of talked about the Desert Island RPG system a little bit. I'd probably have 3 that I'd probably look towards. One probably being the End of the World, because of how creative you can kind of get with playing on top of that base system. Let's see, Dungeon World, I don't have too much stuff with it, but I do like the world building aspect of that, and I think that's kind of fun for me at least. And then you've got, I think, some of the Fantasy Age stuff that looks pretty cool. But D&D, like, man, it's kind of hard to... You hate to kind of have to keep going back to that, but it's as big as it is for a reason, for as long as it has, too. And you've got, like, stuff that you can build on top of it, like Middle Earth and things like that. So that's always pretty cool. So I'd almost, I don't know, I'd have to kind of think about it for a little bit. Let's see. So the how you handle a problem player. I know I haven't really had to deal with that too much, but I do know that I've witnessed a lot of things, at least watching online characters and stuff fight. At least, sorry, watching sessions and stuff that other people have played and things like that. And for us, for the community stream, I know that at the very beginning we had rules laid out that were kind of like, this is our, not manifesto, but something that we agree upon together as a group, that we're going to, so here's the ground rules and this is what we're going to agree to. And if you're willing to agree to that, then we're going to play. And that way later on you can kind of come back to those rules and say, hey, so one rule would be play as in a way that would not only be fun for you, but be fun for everyone else. So if it's just fun for you, you could come back to that and say, hey, I know you like lighting things on fire, and I know that's like totally fun and definitely in your character's role. And I do love you playing role-playing wise, but let's maybe look at, is everybody else having fun? And if they're not, and if it's like really grating on each other, then maybe let's figure out how we can make sure that everybody's having fun. And again, you're still going to have to think about personalities and things like that. You're going to have personality clashes and things, but at least the rules, the group rules, I think is really good to find out a good set to start with. And then that way you can always kind of come back to that. And you can also say, look, you agreed to this before, and maybe we can clarify what some of those mean, or maybe add a little bit more if we need to. So that's something that I think would be a pretty cool tool, and something that I used early on that I foresaw as being something that we might need to address later, but I just haven't had to really come back and address later. And then as far as DM or GM, DM, GM, or player. I kind of like both. GM is very taxing because, I mean, it's you. You have to build a lot of the story and you have to juggle a lot of things mentally. And then it's also great to be a player too, to just kind of down, my first several games were just as a GM and I didn't know what I was doing. So I was doing this for all my friends because they didn't want to GM or do anything like that, even though I asked them. But I was able to actually be a player online, which was a lot of fun because then it just felt different. It was less stressful for me because I could just get out and I could play, and I didn't have to think a whole lot about the next story and about things that are going on. So I like aspects of both. It just kind of depends on whether I'm ready for that mental taxing or not to be a GM.
I agree. I also want to change my desert island to end of the world. I'm just not going to get on the boat. I'm going to stay at home so I can keep all of them.
Can you put all of the systems on the boat and just take the boat to the island?
Well, we can do this.
Well, there's that. Terry Erickson's actually talking about different kinds of problem players in the chat. And I can deal with murder hobos. I can deal with the rules lawyers, the people that burn things all the time. The thing that I have a really big problem with are the loners, the ones that always want to separate themselves from the parties. Not just like going through a dungeon or whatever. I mean, everyone's gone to sleep. I'm going to go do this. Or everyone's going to go to that shop. I'm going to go on the other side of town and do this. Every single time we play. I don't know how to stop that. Because you want to give people the chance to like go do things and kind of go flesh out their character, but when it's every single time they have the opportunity, it can get a little frustrating for everybody involved. Do y'all have any ideas for that?
What if is there a creative way that you can have that person be involved more in the story? Like, what is their motive for wanting to be the loner? Are they wanting to feel special? They want to be like really cool. Like, what's driving that motivation? And then maybe figuring out a way how to have them use something in the story or help with the story or do something that would actually be a benefit and actually make the game fuller, maybe, instead of maybe trying to fight that so much to kind of veer them back over. I don't know if that's a good, I don't know how you do that. That's just something that I would come up in my mind, because at least doing a lot of kid games, they're gonna kind of do what they want to do, but what's their motivation for doing that? And then how do I foster that, and how do I give them what they're seeking in the game? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or you could just go sleep potion.
We'll see. I admit, I was thinking
good cut, bad cut.
You could just end up having them kidnapped.
I mean,
Like, hey, you were away from the party, and all of a sudden a
yeah.
bag gets put over your head, and your character is now not seen for a while. Just sit there.
I'll give a timeout.
the timeout. Yeah. I mean, and I'm trying not to go like, you turned a corner and someone stabbed you. Like, I'm trying to not do that. But at a certain point, I think I might just have to. I don't know. That's always been my main problem with storytelling. But I mean, I'll take that in consideration.
Some GM put my vampire on ice for 20 plus years. I'm not going to mention any names or anything.
I bet he was a pretty cool guy, though. We'll move on. What 3 RPG systems do you want to play this year? Not necessarily run, but what would you like to play?
I'd like to see a Blades in the Dark game. Just because I've read through it and it sounds interesting, but I don't even know anybody that would be interested in playing. Probably because we have started one game and never did get to finish it. I want to do an End of the World with character or players that actually want to play and not metagame. Gosh, there was another one that came to mind, and now it escapes me. I'll bow out and let somebody else answer.
I don't know if I can think of 3, but as much as I love crafting and stuff, and kind of the horror genre as a whole, I've never played Call of Cthulhu once. So I think it'd be cool to try that this year if I can get a chance.
So that's your big one?
That's my one. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of the ones I'd love to try, but as far as like one that I want to focus on, it would be that one.
I would like to, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. It's called Night's Black Agent. It's actually about Dracula. The government tried to get him to work for it, but they've got a bunch of stuff out there, and it's pretty neat. They've actually got that's part of the lore. It's got notes in the margins and stuff like that. It's basically a history book that's used for the game. So I would like to play that. Maybe City of Mist. It looked interesting. I don't know too much about it, but it looked pretty neat. And I don't know, like Mark said, Blades in the Dark. I am currently playing a game with him that I am. I'm an evil character, so
Lawful evil.
playing lawful evil, playing with a bunch of good characters. So that's fun. But I'd like to get a whole group of, I guess, anti-heroes together. You know, so you can let loose. People can let loose and do stuff they normally wouldn't do playing a role-playing game. So those would probably be my three.
How about you, Mike?
Are these games we've already played ones that we have,
Just three that you would want to
or
play
either?
this year. Yeah, it could be either.
Call of Cthulhu, Deadlands Reload. We see. I wouldn't mind playing maybe East Texas University or D&D, either one of those.
And Chris?
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of thinking more about what I'd be able to play. So one thing that I'd probably run, at least this year, is a No Thank You Evil, which is basically like the kids' cipher system. And I'll definitely, that's one thing that I'll probably want to do more often with my kids. I'll probably be doing that. And there's also a new board game, like play to play shop that opened up this week, and I'll probably be maybe doing some stuff there. So I may try to look into maybe some D&D stuff. I still would love to get into the Middle Earth portion of the D&D stuff, but I could probably see myself at least doing D&D and the 5e and No Thank You Evil, and then I don't know, just maybe at least one game, an online game with somebody else, maybe the community stream. Not really necessarily looking for a specific system other than those two. So, but just to be able to get in and maybe play as a player character.
Well, all right.
Actually,
I know I touched on it. Oh, go ahead.
There's one that I've heard about that I've never actually gotten a chance to dig into. Have you ever heard of 10 Candles?
Yes.
Yeah. I think Mark's played that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that one, it didn't come off as well as I'd hoped, only because I had one character at the table that, even though we explained it, he did not fully understand that everybody dies.
Yeah,
And he was playing to win.
So tell me about 10 Candles. I've not heard of it, and also too, for anybody else that's not going to know it that's watching the stream, if one of you guys could maybe clarify that and kind of tell me, what the 10 Candles system is.
Okay, well,
Go ahead.
Mark, if you've played it, then you probably know more than me. I've only seen a few bits and pieces of it. So, but it's basically like an end of the world thing. The world's ending. Everyone's gonna die. That's about it.
Maybe. I mean, it's for the characters. Their world is going to disappear. They're all going to die. But as far as the world, it depends on the setting you want to put it in, because you can choose whether, I mean, it could be true end of the world, aliens invading or whatever, or it could be, the characters on a space station and their supplies, air, electronics are dying. It all depends. But as the game progresses, based on die rolls, you start out with 10 lit candles, and depending on the rolls, if they roll poorly, candles go out. And as they go out, they have less opportunities available to them. The bad guys or the bad events have more advantages placed on them, and things get darker and darker, both visually and mentally, as the game progresses.
Very cool.
See, that's kind of up my alley of what I want to try. I'm always into stuff like that. So if I could find a way to play that or Call of Cthulhu, one or the other, I think I'd be happy this year.
I guess sort of a plug for another stream. Take a look at Hyper RPG for 10 Candles. They've done several, not only several episodes, they've done several different multi-episode sessions for 10 Candles that gave me lots of ideas.
Okay, Hyper RPG. All right, I'll check them out.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Now, like I was saying earlier, I've been into RPGs since probably 78, 79, when I was a kid. So it's been quite a while. How about y'all? How long have you been into role-playing games?
Let's see. I have to check my con badges. I guess we're fairly recent. I'm looking at 2008, 2009, when we were pulled in by some friends and introduced to 4E. And before that, we weren't really much gamers at all. And we just had fun getting with our friends and sitting around a table and eating and drinking and role-playing, and it just grew from there.
About you, Mike?
Actual role-playing games. When I first discovered INVICTUS Stream and played Call of Cthulhu with a couple other members. Although when I was a kid, Bob knows about these. The Lone Wolf games, those I've played since I was a kid, but the actual role-playing games, just the last few years.
Greg?
9 years probably. I was kind of afraid to jump into them because I felt like there's a line that you cross when you get into tabletop stuff. Like how nerdy do you want to be? You know, like once you cross this line, it's done. You're all the way in. And I was afraid to jump in, but like, I had blown my knee out my last year in high school, and I was just sitting around with nothing to do. And I had friends that were into Pathfinder, and they taught me into it one day. And ever since, I've just been like really invested in this stuff. And I was right. Once I crossed that line, that's pretty much it.
It's like chips. You can't just eat one.
Exactly. No matter what that serving size says.
That's a suggestion. What about you, Chris?
So frame the question again.
How long have you been into playing role-playing games?
So years-wise, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. But again, just kind of being able to get into it when I can with family time and, you know, stuff like that. So basically I started because I had a buddy of mine that wanted to do End of the World, and he told me about that, and there was like a zombie system, and then it was also based on yourself. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, so in my head, I was preparing for that game, but it never materialized. But it was just so cool in my head. And I'd kind of heard about RPGs before, and always like was open to the possibility of it, but none of my friends were into that at all. So it was something that I kind of looked at as like, hey, is this one more thing that do I want to get into, because it's going to be me probably driving the whole time. So when my friend kind of got me hooked on the bug, at least mentally, kind of thinking like I would still like to do this as a GM, but I really want to play. But anyway, so I got a group of my friends together, and I said, "Hey, I'll GM, and let's do this system, the zombie system part of the end of the world." So anyway, I ran that, and then I needed a lot of help because I still felt like my head was spinning with it. And so I looked to YouTube, and then I saw the INVICTUS Stream, and got plugged into the community. And actually, like, what was really cool was I was needing help with it. So I shot out some questions on the Facebook group, and then Harlan responded, and then a bunch of other people responded, and I don't know, like, that really helped motivate me further. Like, I think I would have been okay doing it the other way, but getting into a community and learning from that, I didn't have that locally and really didn't know how to find those people locally. Even though we did have some stores, it wasn't really what I was looking for in help wise. So anyway, that community aspect of it helped really catapult me going forward. And that's kind of, I don't know, I just wanted to, I like story stuff, and then also, I don't know, imagining things. So that's kind of really why I liked the idea of RPGs. So
Cool deal. So anywhere from last century to just a few years ago. We're closing in on the end of the stream here, but not really anything to do with RPGs or anything. But do y'all have any book suggestions for people watching? Could be fantasy books or whatever. I've got 3 sitting right here.
Dresden Files
Beat me to it.
and the Iron Druid Chronicles. Both of those.
who does the Iron Druid?
Dang it, I can't think of the author's name. Because I found Iron Druid after I ran out of Dresden books, and someone said, okay, well, this will kind of meet your need until he publishes another book. And yeah, they're good. I reread the series quite a bit.
So pitch it to us, and why we'd want to. Who you think the audience would? What audience do you think would like that?
Dresden is urban fantasy, so modern day setting, but you're dealing with wizards and vampires and the Fae and all that goes along with it. So all of the anachronisms meshed with modern times, and you've got the lead character is a wizard who is a private investigator and trying to make a living being both. So there's a lot of humor, but there's a lot of stuff that you can say, hey, I can pull that into a game that I'm going to be playing. So I enjoy the Dresden Files books a lot for that.
And there is also Invictus Goodreads. I think I'm part of that. I know Chris is. Mike Fazio, I believe Joe. So head over to Goodreads and look up the Invictus and join that. There's a lot of good suggestions over there.
So
mine would be. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So to let people know about Goodreads, Goodreads is basically a social media community for reading books. So if you're looking for what other people are reading, I know a lot of times like it's hard for me to keep all of this stuff in my head on what I've liked and then what my thoughts are about it. So the social part of it is that if you've got friends, specifically I think some Facebook friends too, that you, or at least the group that you're part of, you can kind of see what everybody else is reading, and then then you can see what books that they've rated and their highest rated books, or some things that they're getting into, which would kind of help you look for that next book. So that's why I like to kind of shoot people towards Goodreads, and kind of what Goodreads is for and how that can be helpful. So go ahead.
I just grabbed 3 off my shelf. First one it's called The Dungeon by Philip Jose Farmer. It's 6 books, and it takes place on a planet that's got different levels, and each level is the main character is hunting for his twin brother. There's some pop culture stuff in here, fantasy stuff, horror. It's got it all covered. And it's an older book. I believe it came back out in might have been the late 80s, early 90s. And then some of my favorite books are from Vampire: The Dark Ages. And this is the book 1 of the Grail's Covenant trilogy. This is actually talks about how the Knights Templar got founded. So there's actual historical figures in here, and that go off on a fantasy and horror level. But these are excellent. I've read this about probably 10 times. And the third one doesn't have anything to do with fantasy, but it's a set of 3 books, not connected. It's called Level 26, and this is by the Anthony Zucker. He's the creator of CSI. And the antagonist in this book is actually in an episode of CSI. But it's the first digi novel, it says down there. You'll read, it'll give you a code. You go online and you watch a little, and it just deepens the story. And it's about serial killers. So those are my 3 suggestions. And I've suggested The Dungeon before. It's a unique series. Greg?
Well, I was because I talk about Dresden Files, but since Mark's taken that from me, that's really about all I have, because that's what I've been reading. I recently started reading those this summer whenever I have time. So I'm on the second. Like, I'm very slow reading right now, considering how much time I have free at this point. So I'm on the second book at this point, but I'm loving it. I wish I had more to recommend besides that, but sadly I don't.
And what about you, Mike?
I would recommend the Legend of Dritz series by R.A. Salvador. Currently reading. Mark, you mentioned Dresden Files. That's an actual role-playing game, by the way. I don't know.
Yep. Fate System.
Yep, Fate System. I also like the Ring of Fire series by Eric Flint. That's pretty good.
All awesome suggestions. I do have another question here coming in for Greg personally. Why do you hate Borgel so much?
He knows what he did, Bob. He knows what he did. And I will never forget. That's all that you need to know. Okay, it's personal. It's a private matter. I will never let it go.
Well, I guess fair enough. We can ask again some other time.
And I actually had a question handed to me from the studio audience. How can you keep the adventure moving when characters are overly cautious of traps and unknown dangers?
AKA a Bob run RPG. So we had that happen a lot. Or Bob, I don't know if you or Mike or Mark, if you want to comment, but I felt like that our group was pretty timid, at least for going forward with things, because we were like overly cautious. And it did help to have Sam with us because he was very like punch forward, punch forward, punch forward. So having his personality in there helped a little bit. But for the most part, I think a lot of us, even though our characters may not have been like adventurous or moving forward, we at least had Mark and Mike Fazio. I think their characters were pretty timid, so it was weird. It was weird to get through that. So I don't know. I remember that happening, but I don't know. Did you guys feel that as well, or?
Well, I mean, I'll say that this question comes specifically from a game that Victoria ran that I was playing in, and I was the only experienced player at the table. Everyone else was fairly new, and I was sitting back hoping that they would do stuff. I was giving them the opportunity, but no one would. And I felt I didn't want to take over the game as the one experienced player at the table. And we had to Victoria just told players, look, if you're not going to do anything, we're stopping. And that got them actually moving forward. As far as the other game, the one that we were playing, I had an expectation for the way the game was going to go, and then someone pulled the rug out from under me, and I had to learn where I was and or at least my character had to learn where he was and what he was doing. And I was very timid in that game. I had to learn. It's like, okay, it's a character, play it. But I had to learn that, and I think it took being prodded by the other players to do that. I don't know.
I think some of my character, at least once, maybe. I think I threw you guys through a portal.
Well, I know we threw Mike through one.
That's right. Okay.
I think Sam picked him up and threw him down.
Probably. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. And plus, it was the first time we were all playing together. A system that I don't think any of y'all had ever played. And I hadn't DM'd that for several years before we did that, so. But had fun. I had fun.
Yeah. So I guess if that happens a lot, maybe now that you know that it's happened, maybe help your characters be aware before the next game. So maybe if I was a little bit more honest and open, at least about us playing, maybe I could have stepped up and said, hey, it kind of sounds like, I don't know, I feel like that this is happening. Does anybody else see that? And then maybe like the next game would be conscious towards that question, and then we all could maybe look at towards going through that, and also too asking Bob too, the GM. Of course, he was the GM at the time. Asking the GM, how can we go forward, or maybe that's something that the GM can look at for tricks or something that can maybe help get some of the characters a little bit more confident with, I don't know, situations. I don't know. At least being self-aware, I think, is helpful.
Yeah.
Who was it? Christopher Trainer said, if they won't go forward, make what's behind them worse. Which, fair enough.
Say that.
That's a good idea.
My first time playing when we played Pathfinder, we were all brand new, GM included. And the first thing you do, there's a big festival going on in town. What do you want to do? And that was it. And because we were just new to the whole idea, we didn't know where to go with that. So, he explained, you have this, there's like a place to go through axes, a place to go drink, a place to go do this and that. I guess just telling them what's available, or maybe not telling them, but kind of like hitting them towards what they can and can't do in certain areas. Well, at least give them an idea of where they should go next. Giving them multiple options up front will help newer players.
Yeah, and when we were playing the vampire game, I'll admit that I was trying to keep it on rails. To keep it moving forward, which, in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. So
It worked.
I'm glad you think so. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun, but I shouldn't have tried to as much as I did. I should have let them, do their own thing, and because I remember a couple times it's like, well, I'm going to do this. It's like, no, you can't do that because you got to go do this, which that was on me as a DM. And hopefully I've grown since then. So next time I DM, that stuff won't happen. But I also like Chris's deal. If there's a lull, make it worse behind him than it is ahead of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good suggestion.
Yeah. Oh, look, lava's behind you suddenly. You better start moving.
And I think I even did that, if I remember right. You were in some chamber and there was a lull, but the main bad guys that I had were trying to knock the door down. There was a couple of big double doors, and they were coming in. So
yeah, we weren't wanting to get through the portal, I think, and then it was just like you helped prod it along. So that was one way that we actually did it. So, but it's been a while. But yeah, once you mentioned that I do remember that portion. But it felt like before that, though, we were so timid on doing things because we didn't want to make a mistake. We were overly cautious. Like, can I inspect the door? Can I look around the room? Can I do this? And try to kind of outsmart the GM a little bit because you don't want to get caught like that. So I don't know. We were just we were learning how to play, and also how to play with a different GM too, because we hadn't played with you before, so we didn't know tendencies or really how to play with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I remember you had us in a chamber where I know you wanted one of us to hold or touch two upright posts at the same time, and I was the one that was there. And it's like, I'm looking at this and I know that is not a good thing.
All right. So did everybody give their book suggestions?
I believe so.
Except for me.
Oh, except for you, yeah.
Just a few things. That's okay. I would really recommend the Ender series. So with basically Ender's Game and then Ender's Shadow. Those two specifically are really cool. Again, everybody's maybe aware of at least the movie that had come out, but that was a really cool book by Orson Scott Card, or at least those couple of books. The first book by itself was really cool because it gives you sort of that kid's view of growing up, sort of. I don't know if it's necessarily a coming of age necessarily, but there are some dark things that are kind of in it. But one thing that Orson Scott Card does too with it that's pretty cool is that he does a lot of like science stuff, kind of real world kind of scientific things brought into his sci-fi fantasy, at least for the Ender series. But anyway, that's a really good book to get into, the Ender's Game. And then the Ender's Shadow is really cool because basically it goes through another character that you kind of like in the first book, but it's a little bit paralleled and paralleling the first book. So it's a good way to get back in and enjoy that first book just as much through a different lens of that. So that's pretty cool, at least storytelling wise, that I thought that he nailed. That was really cool, that I enjoyed with that. And that's the Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow. And then the Wise Man's Fear, the King Killer Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. That's a really cool book. It does have a lot of magic stuff in it, but it does have a lot of arts. So the main character is very musically inclined as well. I don't know if that necessarily sounds interesting to anybody, but the way that Patrick uses it in it is very cool. It starts out with an older person, or the main character, in a setting where he's kind of talking about his past, and sort of like you're almost in a pub sort of, and then you're hearing like somebody that's trying to transcribe or kind of report, kind of get this story documented. So he's asking the main character Kvoth what his stories were and trying to get that story out of it. And then you go back to the future or past and then kind of learn about this stuff. It's really, really slow for probably about 90 pages. But after that 90, man, it just like, it goes crazy quick, and it's not completed yet, but anyway, I'd still recommend everybody look at that one. Very cool storytelling ideas. So
Sounds good. Before we wrap up, I want to go over some of the possible systems that I would like to run in 2020. So I've actually got them here. We talked about a couple of them. The first one, Blades in the Dark, an actual book. So we've discussed that one. We've also discussed Lone Wolf.
Cool.
Mike had talked about that, and I too, when I was in school, got all they're basically choose your own adventure books, but they're about worn out. The next one is an older one, but Star Wars. Not the new stuff, because I don't
Fantasy
have that
Flight
kind of
game.
time to, yeah. And then not that one yet, but Tales from the Loop.
Got
You're
that.
talking about, you could play with kids. Good one. And then after that, Tales from the Flood. This takes place in the 90s. This takes place in the 80s. So that's pretty neat. And lastly, Riffs from Palladium Games. The reason I like this one is they make a bunch of different games, but you can use them all in the same universe. So if I wanted to use Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Riffs, that would be totally possible. Whatever I want to do there. I love that system, and it's easy. And so those are a few that I'd like to run this year. Or if anybody else wants to DM, any of you guys or anybody else in the stream, I am totally down as a player character. I would love that. But yeah, that's about it for this first episode. So I think we got everything covered that we wanted to.
Okay. I don't know if do you want to go over real quick the systems that you just went over, and just do like a real short blurb for each one of them, kind of a short pitch. That way, the audience kind of knows, and then whispers, I don't really know some of those systems, and it would be helpful to me. But anyway, so if you want to try that, that'll be great.
Yeah. We'll start in reverse. Rifts takes place on Earth, a post-apocalyptic game. Not like Fallout or anything. This has demons, dragons. Atlantis rises, kills millions of people. The energy from all those deaths open up gates and all around the Earth, and that's where this comes in. There's probably, and I'm probably over-exaggerating, probably 50 books to this game. But like I said, it's real easy. Tales from the Loop, like I said, takes place in the 80s. You're kids, and it's basically when you draw up your character, you have problems you have to solve. You could get grounded in this game, throw a wrench in your plans. But basically, it's about the Super Hadron Colliders or Hadron Colliders.
Mm-hmm.
Something goes wrong. Well, in this one, something definitely goes wrong. Not this one. And the technology that comes with. We've only drawn characters up for this, me and my brother. I haven't really got around to playing it yet, but I really want to do that. Of course, everybody knows Star Wars. Don't really have to say much about that. There's several books in this series too, probably 20, 25.
Is that a pretty heavy system?
No, it's not as heavy as the new one, the Age of Rebellion.
Hmm.
This is basically 5th edition D&D, but Star Wars. It's a D20.
The Final Fantasy, sorry, the FFG version of the Star Wars, I think the biggest thing there is the system, and it's the dice system that kind of help the GM tell the story. So that's kind of pretty complex from what I found from running the game and playing the game and watching it being played. Those dice are pretty cool, but it's something that you kind of have to get used to. So, but this one you said is more kind of like a 5e, like a traditional type D&D system.
Yeah, you use your regular dice. There's no special dice needed. Lone Wolf. When I find out how I can do this online, I'd really like to do this, because if anybody's got the books, you'll know what this is. And this is a random number generator. And what you do here is you'll put this flat, and you have a coin, and you flip it. And whatever it lands on, that's your number. You flip it again, whatever it lands on, that's whoever you're fighting's number or whatever skill. And then you've got another table where you look at that. And you could last a long time in this game as a player, or you may not make it out of your first. So when I find out how I can fudge the rules and not have to use this, because I really don't like it. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. D10 percentages or D6s. They sell a set of D6 dice, but for this game, for the Lone Wolf game. And Blades in the Dark, I haven't even drawn up a character. I just like the system where you play as a bad guy, and you live in a town that's like kind of like Victorian times. It's a dirty town. It's a dark town, and it's got demons and monsters and ghosts and different factions of whatever part of the city you're in. But it's basically a heist game. You play as thieves or assassins, and you've got to do stuff and come back. And there's a cooldown period where if you're being chased by the law or another faction. So again, when I can get around to actually reading this one and getting the rules down, we'll do that. And before we do any of that, I don't know if we will have a character creation stream or episode, or I'll just send stuff, because everything is free for Blades in the Dark. I know that you can get it off the website, and I've got it too, the sheets and everything like that. So yeah, that's what I would like to do here in 2020. Like I said, we might get around to a couple of them. I might change it up and throw a monkey wrench in something and grab something else off the shelf and surprise everybody. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks, Bob.
And thank you all for joining me today.
Yeah.
Real quick, out of all those, which one would you want to do first?
I would really like to do riffs first. It's real easy, and it's percentages, but you know you're going to use. And there's some getting used to damage. There's two types of damage. It's called SDC and MDC. You got your SDC is structural damage, which is me punching you in the face. You're going to take structural damage. And then there's mega damage, where if you have a gun or you're in a mech or something like that, and then I punch you in the face and I'm in a 50-foot mech, then then we talk about mega damage. So but yeah, if I had a choice between the ones I showed today, it would probably be riffs what I'd be running.
Okay.
All right. Now, also, it looks like Terry said that he's in for helping and however he can. So DM or play. So.
Well, I will put him on a list.
All right. Yeah, and we'll I guess figure out how to kind of do that for the stream and kind of get that available, and then we'll maybe kind of pick, because of course we can't get everybody in, but we'll at least have some stuff in queue. So.
And it's like I said earlier, before we started today, I know that the people here today have lives and they can't always, commit. It's going on 2 hours now, which I'm really surprised. Every Saturday when they're going to spend it with their kids. I know Mark is, he's got an actual game session that he's probably going to go right to today, if not too long after. But I would like to get, different people from the stream or to get in here and talk from the community. We can talk about different stuff. Like I said, it's going to be different people when we run games and stuff, but so it's just something to keep in mind. And like I said, I don't want hog y'all's time on days off and family time and stuff like that. So.
I'm always up for talking about games.
If I got time for it, I'm definitely down.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of the stream. So, Bob, I appreciate it. Mike, Greg, and Mark, and Bob, it was great to see you guys. And again, to everybody else that's watching, see y'all around the table.